Good morning. Let's get started with some singing.
Happy Earth Day Sunday, and welcome to worship at First Unitarian Church of Portland. We are a multi-generational, welcoming congregation that strives to nurture the individual spirit and together live into beloved community. We're so glad you are here with us in the sanctuary and joining us online this morning. I have a few announcements to share. All voting members will soon receive, or may already have received, your annual ballot packet from the church. The return envelopes should have included the member's name in the return address section, but it was inadvertently omitted at the printers. So please add your return address when sending in your ballots back to church so that we can record whose ballots we've received. Thanks very much for that. Our fabulous church auction is off to a great start after the kickoff last Sunday. We have over 140 auction items that include events, services, vacation homes, and more to choose from. Auction items are up on our online site and on display downstairs in Fuller Hall after the service. Bidding has already started, so if you haven't jumped in yet, you can join in today. To participate in the auction, simply follow the instructions that were sent to you in last week's email. And following the service, head downstairs to Fuller Hall and check out the auction tables to ask questions, find out more about what's being offered, and get help with bidding. We still have pies and plants, along with beautiful art pieces from our Zimbabwe Artists Project. And please mark your calendar for next Sunday, May 5th, which is the end of the auction. And we're having an all-church party with food and entertainment and games for the whole family in the Buchanan Reception Hall after next week's service. Today, right after you've had a chance to check out the auction, please join us over in the Buchanan Reception Hall for our annual Earth Fair organized by Community for Earth. Starting at noon, there will be food, activities for kids and families, learning opportunities about native plants, electrification, and more. And then at 1:30, we'll have an hour-long, exciting program in Elliott Chapel, including a special appearance of our ukulele ensemble with John and Cynthia Bowling, words from Reverend Allison, and engaging conversation with Oregon's 9th Poet Laureate, Kim Stafford. What a lot of fun.
Wake up, America, we're all in this together. It's our home, so let's take care of it. You know that you want to, you know that you got to. Wake up, America, tomorrow becomes a new day, and everything you do matters. Yeah, everything you do matters in some way.
Thank you both. And with that energy and spirit, let's take a few minutes to greet our neighbors both here and online. Our chalice lighters this morning are members of the Earth Fair team of our Community for Earth. We are Unitarian Universalists. We light this chalice in faith, in hope, and in love.
Friends, as we gather together this morning to celebrate Earth Day, I call us into worship with these words by poet Gregory Orr. This is what was bequeathed us. The earth the beloved left, and leaving left to us. No other world but this one. Willows and the river and the factory with its black smokestacks. No other shore, only this bank on which the living gather. No meaning but what we find here. No purpose but what we make. That and the beloved's clear instructions. Turn me into song, sing me awake. Now let us rise in body or in spirit and sing together for the beauty of the earth. Our responsive reading this morning comes from James Baldwin. For nothing is fixed. Forever and forever and forever, it is not fixed. The earth is always shifting. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down rock. Generations do not cease to be born, and we are responsible to them because we are the only witnesses they have. The sea rises, the light fails, lovers cling to each other, and children cling to us. The moment we cease to hold each other, the moment we break faith with one another, the sea engulfs us and the light goes out. Now let us join in our doxology, Spirit of Life.
This year, First Unitarian shares our plate offering with organizations dedicated to uplifting the care and dignity of all people experiencing homelessness. For April, we share our offering with Welcome Home. As a coalition of service providers, affordable housing developers, and neighbors with a shared vision of a region where everyone has a safe, affordable place to call home, Welcome Home advocates for policies that address the root causes of our housing crisis. They are invested in increasing housing equity across Multnomah, Clackamas, and Washington counties. The coalition has championed 2 affordable housing bonds in the last decade. And as a part of their work for housing equity, Welcome Home hosts community education events to uplift policies that center those most impacted by the housing crisis. First Unitarian will host one of those community conversations next week. In a moment, our ushers will pass baskets for those of you here in the sanctuary who would like to give your offering by cash or check. And if you'd like to share your offering online, you can use the QR code that will appear on the screen or in the seat back here in the sanctuary. Thank you very much for your generosity that sustains the mission of this church and our partnerships in the community. During our service each week, we take time to hold the prayer intentions of our community. If you're here in person, you can write down your prayer request and light a candle of intention in one of our side galleries. Or if you are online, you can send them to prayer@firstunitarianportland.org. Our ministers and our lay ministers are here to hold your prayers and provide care throughout the week. I have one parish concern to share this morning. Longtime member Andrew Wheeler died last Thursday, April 25th, after he took a bad fall last month and broke his neck. Andrew would have turned 94 years old in June. He and his wife Julie were married for 65 years and joined the church in 1971. Andrew was an architect by profession and was involved in the church in a variety of ways, most recently as one of the stars of the board's karaoke auction events. We hold Julie and their family in our hearts and prayers at this time. So will you join me in a spirit of prayer and intention? And as we settle in, I invite you to bring awareness to your body and your breath, drawing us together in this moment. We call on the ever-present Spirit of life and love to remind us of our connection to one another. We know that there are many concerns unspoken this day, and we unite our hearts in care for all among us. We hold our siblings who ache with the pain of loss, anxiety, or fear. And may those of us experiencing hardships know the care and abiding love of our collective body and feel the solace of our interconnection. In that same spirit, may we feel the spaciousness of compassion and of joy and of love that is here among us too. Spirit of love, be with each of us as we move through this day and all our days. Help us to feel the sacredness of our own lives and our precious bodies exactly how they are. Help us to see the humanity in all people and the sacredness of all beings. Accompany us to be present to the beauty and grace. As we learn to love and have compassion for ourselves, may we expand that spirit of wholeness to all we touch. May we know deeply that we are not separate, remembering that my well-being is linked to yours and yours to mine across this globe. We pray that recognition helps us to care for our precious planet, the streams, the trees, the mountains, the creatures, all of us made of the same elements, all of us of this earth and universe. Spirit of life and love, let us strive for peace, committed to the inherent worth of all people, of all communities and beings. Help us resist the pulls of fear, anger, and greed that feed machineries of war and destruction. Help us be and support courageous people throughout this world who take great risks to speak against tools of empire, militarism, forced displacement, environmental destruction. We bless the efforts of all who commit to human rights, nonviolence, and care for our shared home. Spirit, may we know today and every day that freedom exists in relationships of mutual care with fellow humans, creatures, and our Mother Earth. Let us nurture love and courage to guide our actions each day. May it be so. Amen. So let's take a few moments of silent meditation together. Our reading today is Once the World Was Perfect by Joy Harjo. Once the world was perfect, and we were happy in that world. Then we took it for granted. Discontent began a small rumble in the earthly mind. Then doubt pushed through with its spiked head. And once doubt ruptured the web, all manner of demon thoughts jumped through. We destroyed the world we had been given for inspiration and for life. Each stone of jealousy, each stone of fear, greed, envy, and hatred put out the light. No one was without a stone in their hand. There we were, right back where we had started. We were bumping into each other in the dark, and now we had no place to live, since we didn't know how to live with each other. Then one of the stumbling ones took pity on another and shared a blanket. A spark of kindness made a light. The light made an opening in the darkness. Everyone worked together to make a ladder. A Wind Clan person climbed out first into the next world, and then the other clans, the children of those clans, their children, and their children, all the way through time to now, into this morning light with you.
As the weather turns nicer, I've been trying to take full advantage of my first spring in Portland. It is stunningly beautiful here, and I've been spending as much free time as I can exploring the many trails and parks that make up this area. And I have quickly caught on to that other favorite spring pastime, complaining about all of the other people who are also exploring the stunningly beautiful trails and parks in our area. Right? They don't have good trail etiquette, their dogs are poorly behaved, there's nowhere to park, and frankly, there are just too many of them. And I am a good liberal, so I can talk the talk during the week about the damage of colonialism and manifest destiny and rugged individualism. But when Saturday rolls around, suddenly I think I have some kind of right to an untouched forest that doesn't extend to other people. And I know I'm not alone, and sometimes, regrettably, viewing the natural world as my own private retreat and other people as interlopers. Travel sites list the top 10 places to escape to nature and get away from the hustle and bustle. One headline from Travel and Leisure magazine reads, "When you need to get away from it all, there's nothing like total immersion in nature." As though trees and lake views aren't also a part of it all, and as though we aren't a part of nature. And Instagram accounts highlight the best underrated national parks to check out if you want to avoid the crowds. Over the past few years, there have been several high-profile news stories about how our national parks are being overrun with tourists, complete with pictures of selfie-taking families in tennis shoes and flip-flops, and overflowing trash cans. And when I see these stories, I feel disgust and worry about the ecological impacts, but that hasn't stopped me from stocking up on New Garrett REI and visiting those parks. If I'm not stopping, who is it exactly that I think should? But they aren't serious nature lovers, I think, as I look at the photos accompanying those stories. You can tell by their flip-flops and their selfie sticks. As though having the right pair of hiking boots entitles me to those beautiful views. And I am not dismissing the joy and wonder of finding yourself in the woods alone, or the mental and spiritual benefits of escaping light and noise pollution, or finding time for contemplation and solitude. Those are indeed good things. But when I view other people as an impediment to my outdoor experience, I'm only further perpetuating a false dichotomy that sees humans as separate from the natural world. And when that attitude spills over into my concern for the climate and the environment, it's very easy to begin seeing each other as the enemy, as only threats to our natural world, and not a part of this great, beautiful web of creation that I profess to respect and desire to protect. And this line of thinking often has sinister consequences. For example, how many of you saw some of the "nature is healing and humans are the real virus" social media posts during the height of the pandemic? They were often accompanied by images of animals who were returning to city centers as humans were forced inside by COVID. And some of them were real, but many of them were fake. And they may seem like a harmless way to bring people's attention to the fact that our daily activities have real impact on our environment. Vehicle emissions, after all, did go down during the pandemic. But at what cost? We were scared and isolated from each other, hoarding toilet paper and fighting over hand sanitizer, watching Black and brown and poor and unhoused folks get sick and die at disproportionate rates, willing to sacrifice the lives of so-called essential workers to the virus while still refusing to pay them a living wage. What does it mean to say that nature is healing when so many humans were dying? The language about humans being the real virus might feel specific to the pandemic, but the idea behind it is not new. In fact, it is tied to a long history of racism, sexism, classism, and ableism within some strands of the modern environmental movement. Many early conservationists were also supporters of the eugenics movement. The preservation of the supposedly untouched wilderness in the early 1900s ultimately resulted in the displacement and death of thousands of indigenous Americans. 20th century conservationists spoke in barely coded language about preserving wilderness as an escape from the so-called blight of modernity and urbanization, meaning cities with increasingly Black and immigrant populations. And books in the 1960s and 70s popularized the false idea that overpopulation in the global South was a main driver of climate change. And we know that the real truth of the matter is that the richest 1% of the world's population are responsible for more than twice the carbon dioxide emissions of the poorest 50%. And the harmful effects of climate change, from hazardous waste exposure to asthma diagnoses, to economic losses after natural disaster, disproportionately impact people of color and low-income populations. At its most extreme form, this ideology is known as eco-fascism, and it is especially violent and insidious. In fact, it was this idea that prompted an 18-year-old to kill 10 people at a Buffalo, New York grocery store in a predominantly Black neighborhood in 2022. And it was this idea that led to the murder of 23 people in an El Paso Walmart in 2019. In his manifesto, the shooter claimed he was trying to stop the Hispanic invasion of Texas. He wrote, "If we can get rid of enough people, then our way of life can be more sustainable." And he was echoing sentiments of the Christchurch, New Zealand shooter who took the lives of 51 people, claiming he was trying to end overpopulation and save the environment. Now, there is a great deal of distance between being annoyed at overcrowding in our national parks and embracing a violent eco-fascism. But both have undercurrents of racism, ableism, and classism that dictate who is worthy of consuming resources, enjoying beauty, and taking up space on this planet. Both create a sharp and false dichotomy between nature and humans, seeing us only as the weavers of the web and not a part of it, dependent on every other part, including each other. And both lead to an environmentalism that fails to see one another as part of this planet that we profess to protect. And that is not a movement that I want any part of, both because it isn't true to my deepest values and because it's bound to be ineffective. As James Baldwin reminded us in our responsive reading, the moment we cease to hold each other, the moment we break faith with one another, the sea engulfs us and the light goes out. I have been holding on to these words as a mantra this Earth Day, while I fight my own urge to blame our climate crisis on nameless others. The moment we cease to hold each other, the moment we break faith with one another, the sea engulfs us and the light goes out. Breaking faith with one another, viewing each other as the enemy, is not going to solve the climate crisis. In fact, it's probably going to exacerbate it. Hatred and paranoia and fear and distrust tend to have negative impacts on our planet. As just one example, Reverend Allison pointed out to us a few weeks ago that the environmental impacts of the current crisis in Gaza are staggering. In just the first 60 days of the conflict, Israel's military response was equivalent to burning 150,000 tons of coal. Rather than seeing each other as the enemy, we have to view one another as shared partners in our work towards a solution. Because we cannot keep waiting for one lone genius to invent some kind of magic technology that will reverse all of the pollution and resource depletion and carbon emissions. If we're going to solve our climate crisis, our solutions need to be multi-layered and involve everyone. We are not going to reduce overconsumption by operating from a place of fear and scarcity, hoarding and competing for resources. No, we're going to do it through living more cooperatively, through mutual aid and shared support. We're going to have to tap into wisdom we've spent too long ignoring. Wisdom from indigenous communities about how to live in right relationship with the land, or wisdom from LGBTQ and Black and Brown communities who have experience caring for each other and surviving and thriving in the face of immense challenges. And we're going to have to really listen to those who disagree with us and try and understand the circumstances and beliefs that keep people from seeing the reality of the climate crisis and getting engaged in this work with us. If we are going to have any hope at all of stopping or reversing the damage we're doing to our planet, we're going to have to stay in deep, accountable, and loving relationship with one another. And that means finding a way to recognize our harmful impacts on the environment without resorting to narratives of fear and distrust and scarcity. It means doing the spiritual work that we need to do to ensure our commitments to environmental and climate justice come not from a place of fear and distrust, but from a place of deep love for one another and for the planet. This kind of love is so present in a story writer and activist Adrienne Marie Brown shared in a recent interview. Brown spoke with admiration and tenderness about a community of queer Black and Brown environmentalists she'd visited in North Carolina. She recounts, "These children came running over with frozen bags of strawberries that they had picked from that garden. They made these strawberry smoothies, and you could taste the sun in your mouth. It was the most delicious, sensual, delightful gift, and they were so proud. These kids were so proud of themselves to be able to offer up this strawberry gift to us. The 7-year-old knows the magic of strawberries," she says. "We're going to be fine." We have to be able to find hope and beauty and sustenance in one another. If we don't, I'm convinced that not only will we fail to solve this crisis, we're going to cause a lot of harm along the way. So how do we get to that place? A place where we're motivated not by disgust at national park tourists, but by the sheer joy of a 7-year-old's delight in a strawberry. First, I think it starts by grounding our work in a radical theology of interdependence that views not only the earth as sacred, and not only the individuals who inhabit it as sacred, but also the very web connecting us as sacred. A theology that sees care for one another and care for the planet as not just related, but deeply entangled to the point of being indistinguishable. Because almost without exception, the practices that corrupt our environment also harm people. From colonization and deforestation that drove indigenous people from their homelands, to the production of cheap consumer goods that rely on exploitive labor and pollute our earth. We are not separate from the web of creation. We cannot harm one without harming the other. Christian theologian Sally McFague uses the metaphor of the earth as God's body to make this point. And I love this image, right, because it helps me see the very fact of our interdependence as divine. But we can also look to our own Unitarian Universalist values. I don't think it's an accident that we hold the inherent worth and dignity of every person as a value right alongside respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And in the new proposed formulation of our values, the idea that we covenant to cherish Earth and all beings by creating and nurturing relationships of care and respect is intertwined with the declaration that every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. And then love sits at the center, holding those two values together. Both formulations make it clear that racism, violence, and eco-fascist ideology have no part to play in our work for building a loving and sustainable future. And both formulations resist the false dichotomy that says we have to choose one, people, or planet. They see us as part of the web of creation, with a responsibility for protecting it, but also as worthy of protection ourselves. Second, I think we need to do things that help us see the daily lived reality of that theology, right? We need to find those spaces where we can lean into joy and delight in the natural world and each other, and remember what it is we're fighting for in the first place. Maybe it's gardening and playing in the dirt with a little kid, or working with an organization focused on improving safe access to the outdoors for LGBTQ people and people of color. Maybe it's finding out more about the people who grow your food, cleaning up a stream with some friends, talking to someone else you meet on the hiking trail and finding out what it is they love about that place. And I'm not claiming any of these actions are going to reverse climate change, but they will help orient us towards an ethic of communal care that rejects fear and greed and individualism. There are people much more knowledgeable than me who can tell us what actions we need to take that might actually help us slow down the impacts of climate change, what letters we need to write, and to which legislators we should be writing them. I'm guessing some of them will be present at our Earth Day fair after the service, and I hope you will seek them out. My expertise is not environmental policy, but theology. And I believe those actions are going to be more effective and easier to stick with for the long haul if they come from a place of joy rather than fear. If they are rooted in a deeply held theology of interdependence and love that respects the web of life and sees and honors our place in it. In a recent interview, environmentalist, Buddhist scholar, and author Joanna Macy commented on her deep commitments to people and planet in spite of the pessimistic forecast for our species and the earth we inhabit. Even if it's too late to save us, she says, it's embarrassing to go out as a species when we're treating each other and the world so poorly. This struck me as a kind of funny, kind of sad, but beautifully simple reframing of our work while we're here. One that doesn't require any scientific knowledge or carbon emissions measurements. It made me want to stay committed amidst all the doubt and complexities, because it reminded me I don't have to be certain that it's going to fix anything before I choose to treat one another and the planet better. Because the honest truth is, I don't know what we're going to be able to save. I hope all of it. It's all so extraordinary. My God, what a world, writes Annie Dillard. There is no accounting for 1 second of it. But I'm not always optimistic. So much has already been lost, and so much seems beyond saving. But either way, I want to go out loving extravagantly and with abandon, drinking strawberry smoothies and tasting sunshine. Even if we're too late to save any of it, I don't think we will regret having loved more until the very end. And if we're not too late, and I hope to God we aren't, well, then I think that kind of fierce love is our best and only shot. So love the planet, love one another, wholly and completely and without reservation. Hold each other, keep faith with one another. That's how we'll keep the sea from engulfing us. That's how we'll keep the light from going out. May it be so. May we make it so through our living dear ones. Amen. Now let us rise in body or in spirit and join together in singing the oneness of everything. Friends, whatever the future holds for us, let's leave today committed to treating each other and the world better. Hold each other, keep faith with one another. For this is the day, the earth, the traveling companions that we have been given. Let us rejoice in all of it and be glad. Go in peace, practice love for one another and for our planet. Amen.